Ladies and gentlemen, I am not okay right now. I need to talk to you guys because something has happened regarding which I may never recover. Yesterday, I did Don Lemon's podcast. Yes, that Don Lemon from CNN, formerly of CNN, I should say. And he straight up asked me if I wanted to call him a fat. Yeah, he was goading me to call him the F word. I'm going to show you some moments from that very interesting and compelling interview. Also, Michaela Peterson is retracting her comments regarding censorship, sort of, maybe, not really. And the Times of Israel and Haaretz, those are Israeli publications, are now verifying a report that the IDF invoked what's known as the Hannibal Protocol on October 7th, meaning they killed their own people. All that coming up on Candace. Yesterday was a crazy day. I have to appreciate that my life is just not normal. It is not normal in any way whatsoever. Began the day doing the Russell Brand interview. It was so wonderful. I can't wait for you guys to be able to see that. I think it is going to be released tomorrow. But then thereafter, I joined Don Lemon on his podcast. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Candace, why would you do that? Don Lemon, oh my God, he was pushing the COVID backs, all this stuff. Well, he's no longer at CNN, and I'm a person that believes that people can transform. And his team was very kind when they reached out, and so they just wanted to have a totally normal conversation. This wasn't supposed to be a gotcha interview. But of course, in the back of my head, I knew very much that it was going to be a gotcha interview because they just can't help themselves. He cannot help himself. In fact, at one point in that conversation, he straight up says that he is the establishment. But let me tell you this. I have been in politics a very long time, or I guess a long time relative to my life, 8, 9 years. But I can guarantee you that what went down yesterday on his show, I have never experienced anything like that. Never experienced it. So I'm going to just take you through some very interesting moments. First and foremost, I don't know why this always happens when people are trying to get me, but they always try to get me by showing me a clip of myself as if I'm going to be startled by what I said. I mean, it's like, I know, guys, I know I said it because it was me that said it. And so Don Lemon did this. He showed this old clip of me talking about how we have allowed the English language to be maneuvered by perverts. And I was speaking about the word faggot, meaning a bundle of sticks, because that is what it meant when I was reading Virginia Woolf. And then suddenly a button got pressed and they said, no, now people are using it to talk about homosexuals and you can no longer say that. And I said that we should not do that. We should not allow perverts to dictate language. And then bizarrely, Don Lemon then tried to ask me if I wanted to call him the F word. Take a listen.
So the word you said was right?
Yeah.
Is that exactly the word? So what did you mean by that? You think it's okay to say the word, to call people a to their face?
No, actually, I said words have meaning. And so when you start allowing the perverts to dictate speech, then words just have to go away. And as I said in that clip, when I was growing up and I was reading English novels, when people say you're walking through the woods to get a faggot, it meant a bundle of sticks. And then they said you can no longer say this word that has a real meaning, right? A bundle of sticks, because some pervert took that and threw it as an epithet towards gay people. I think that's actually, that's a wrong way of thinking, because then what you're doing is you're allowing perverts to dictate society. So I don't like the death of the English language because people are getting offended. So that's like, I could pick any word. I could say, plant. And from now on, every time I see a gay guy, I'm going to be like, he's a total plant. And then eventually they say you can't say plant anymore. It's like, no. This is a real word that has meaning. Attack the person who's perverting the word, but you don't suddenly disappear a word and you say you can no longer say it, or you can no longer read these Virginia Woolf novels because the word has been perverted. I think that's a backwards way of thinking.
You can read Virginia Woolf novels, and the only people I know who are trying to ban books, Virginia Woolf. And other books that even say the N-word. I mean, it's conservatives. That's who's trying to do it. I don't think that you should be banning books. But I do know, Candace, that language evolves over time. And when people say that word to me, they're not calling me a cigarette. They're not calling
obviously,
me
that's the point. It has a context. So if you want to punish that person because they're saying that offensively, that, if you feel that this person, but it's not fair to then say to everybody else who's not using that word that this word has now been banned. I just think that's ridiculous. Yeah. That's my point. Yeah, I don't think that you can suddenly say go backwards and delete words that had real meaning because someone has perverted it, because then it never stops. It just becomes constantly having to update the language for people's feelings. And I don't think that we should be doing that.
So you would never call me a in my face, right?
Well, why would I just randomly call you a fat?
I'm just
Have you ever
I
seen the
mean, you
Louis
would never use that
C.K.
word
skit
against
on? Have you ever
a
seen the
gay
Louis
person.
C.K. skit on fat?
No, I like Louis C.K., but I don't think I've ever
You
seen a
should
skit on
watch
fat.
it.
Yeah. No, but you would never call like a gay person that to their face.
That seems like an absurd, like, why? No, of course, I'm not just going around. I'm a 35-year-old mother. I don't go around being like, hey, you're a That's just like, I'm not 18 years old. Like, I'm not going around calling people names, period. I wouldn't go up to a fat person and call them names. I wouldn't call it's just like it's an absurd thing to be going around pointing and calling people names because I don't like them. I would no. So the answer is no. I would not.
Do you use the N-word?
No, I don't. Still not entirely clear on what point he was trying to make there or why he kept trying to goad me into saying that I would call him the F word. He then later on asks me if I'm a homophobe. He asks me if I have any gay friends. It just got weird. And then, of course, because he has to go through the leftist liturgy, he arrived at the inevitable point where he wanted to ask me about conspiracy theories. And at this point, his producers had produced a list asking me, do you believe this? Do you believe that? Do you believe this? And because you are a regular viewer of the show, you know that these are just psychological tactics. When they're calling somebody a conspiracy theorist, it's because they don't want you asking questions about a narrative that they are insisting upon. But as I said yesterday, I'm built different. So here's what I said when he asked me about who I believe shot JFK. Take a listen.
The CIA killed JFK.
Yes, I believe that.
You do?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because there would be no other reason for them to lock down the files for as long as they did and then come up with a stupid Russia did it thing that long. The only time you would lock down files like that regarding a sitting president being shot. And by the way, if they knew Russia had done it, we would have gone to full-blown war because they would have killed the sitting president. And also because, and this is a very interesting fact that I learned in this book, Chaos, that people should read and actually become very informed about this. The individual that shot the individual who shot JFK, his name was Jacob Rubenstein, was subsequently MK Ultra'd. That was a government program in which they had realized that if you give people a cocktail of drugs, you could essentially not brainwash them, but you could you could make them crazy instantly. They could give you schizophrenia instantly. So the doctor that was behind that, Dr. Leslie, this is all a fact, by the way. This is not like these are declassified. The reporter who worked on this for 22 years of his life working on this was Tom O'Neill. So I know you're laughing, but I'm encouraging you to actually read it. It could just be something you didn't know. The book is called Chaos, the CIA, the 1960s, and MK Ultra. And they MK Ultra'd, admittedly, in the documents, they MK Ultra'd Jacob Rubenstein, which is why the judge, on the day that he appeared, the second day that he appeared, said, what happened to him? I was speaking to him totally fine yesterday, and now you're telling me that he's legally insane.
But what I want you to know is, and I think the book is called Chaos, as you said, people read it. Some of the things that you're mentioning and the names that you're mentioning have been written about before. And just as maybe you weren't aware of the birth certificate, the other things, perhaps you weren't aware of the investigations that have taken place.
You just can't shoot a president in broad daylight, and then we pretend we don't know who did it. That's just that. You have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe our government had nothing to do with the shooting of JFK. That's my viewpoint. It's too ridiculous.
Okay, I'll disagree with that because I just don't. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Do you take offense do you take offense when people call you a conspiracy theorist?
Do you think what?
Do you take offense when people call you a conspiracy?
No, because I've studied the history of psychology in this country, and I know that that term was actually entered into the American mindset after the shooting of JFK. They started using the term conspiracy theory to make people get off of their tail or not ask questions by making it seem like it's crazy to want to know who shot a sitting president in broad daylight. And that, my friend, is a fact, that they never expect you to know any facts beyond the ones that they give you. And typically what they're giving you are not facts. What they're giving you, the mainstream media, are conspiracies. And the conspiracies are to basically confuse you about what's actually happened. And that is why it's so important that you don't buckle and you have no fear about being called a name, because it literally, conspiracy theory is a term that the CIA came up with, Operation Mockingbird, which was put into place after the shooting of JFK to put journalists on payroll, which they did via Operation Mockingbird, to convince the public that they need not look any further than the Warren report, which was commissioned. I know you guys are asking all these questions about JFK being shot. You guys are all crazy conspiracy theorists. So typically, actually, when I hear that word, it makes me go, "Ooh, I'm delighted," because I want to know what it is that you're trying to hide. That is why it is important to pursue real history and to pursue real knowledge and not what is taught to us in a textbook or what is being given to us via the mainstream media, who I believe are still on the payroll of the CIA because there's been no evidence that that program, Operation Mockingbird, was ever terminated. But let me bring you to this next portion as we tease this interview. It was very long. I think it was over an hour, because this is when perhaps for the first time ever, I fully lost my cool in an interview. So I'm going to tell you what was leading up to this. So, of course, because he was running through, like I said, this very obvious, typical liturgy of leftist talking points, he inevitably arrived at, Candace, I was struggling to do this interview today because there were people that work with me that were so offended by your statements, my statements, which were intentionally taken out of context. Actually, their statements I never even said, where they were trying to pretend that I was a Holocaust denier, as I did an episode talking about how strange it is that we remark on how deranged the scientists were under Adolf Hitler, and then we brought them over to America via Operation Paperclip. These people are so crazy. The scientists, these experiments were so nuts. Let's bring them over to America. Does that make any sense? Of course, that makes no sense, but we did it. And so they've taken it out of context, and Don Lemon was doing it and going, my Jewish friends and were so hurt by this. I struggled with the decision of whether or not to let you on here. And then I'm not even kidding. You're going to watch. This is unbelievable. I then am speaking to him about Christians being persecuted, and he laughs in my face at the concept of Christian persecution. And I lost my cool. Take a listen. It's not about the Holocaust, okay? Christians suffered too. In fact, we are the most persecuted religion in the world. And I am so sick of it. I am so sick of there can only be one victim narrative.
Candace,
and if you start talking about
Christian, and we are not the most persecuted in the world.
That is a fact. What are you saying? We're not the most persecuted religion in the world. Do you know what's happening in Armenia? Do you know what's happening in Nigeria? Do you know what just happened in Canada? The fake story that was propagated by all of the mainstream networks about the nuns, and they found the mass burial, which allowed 85 Catholic churches to be burned to the ground in the last 3 years in Canada. We are still being persecuted right now. So I take great offense to you coming in here about the sensitivities of the people that are working on your show when I'm sitting here telling you that I'm a Christian and I'm offended by what you're saying, and you laugh, you mock Christian persecution. Do you think it's acceptable to laugh when someone tells you about Christian persecution? Because let me tell you something, if I had done that, if I had laughed about the Holocaust, I would be chased out of polite society. Then don't laugh. Don't laugh at Christian persecution. Don't do it.
Laughable that the name is in the term. It's
do
laughable.
Not laugh. You literally just laughed when I talked about Christian persecution. Don't do that ever again. Not in my presence. And that is exactly how I felt. And I just wanted people to hear that because I am so sick of this. I am so sick of people mocking Christians. They're just so comfortable doing it. He literally laughed when I started talking about Christian persecution, when I was saying that my episode was not about the Holocaust. I was talking about the German Christians who were mass murdered following the war, who had absolutely nothing to do with Hitler and nothing to do with Nazis. And I talked about how it is okay for us to talk about other persecutions because Christians are persecuted. And he laughed. The audacity of that. And I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he did it because people need to see that. People need to understand that the mainstream media has, I guess, such a lack of respect for Christians because we're always supposed to be nice. That's what they do. And they'll even, you're a good little Christian. You're not acting like a good little Christian. I hate when I see this, by the way, people that are not Christians who use this line. Like, you're not behaving like a good little Christian. As if they've used our Bible to subjugate us. Let me remind you how to be a good little Christian while we insult you and why we violate every single tenet that you guys believe in. Let me remind you about how you should react to me as I am insulting you. We have to stop allowing for that. And I am not kidding. Like when that moment happened, I was like literally about to put him in timeout. Like I was treating him like he was my son. And I was very serious when I said, do not ever do that in my presence. And I hope that I give other people the permission to do that because it is not going to change until we demand that it changes because he would have never, like I said, ever done that in the presence of a person that was Jewish talking about their persecution. He would have never laughed. I do not believe he would have ever done it in the presence of a Muslim talking about their persecution. It is Christians that are considered a laugh out loud joke all across the world. And there's a reason for that. And we'll get into those reasons later. Not today. Anyways, that interview, as Team Last told us, is going to be premiering in its entirety. They're sharing clips right now, but on Monday. Hopefully they drop it sooner. I think they should, because there's a lot more gems. There's even, he does the obligatory thing where he shows me a Nick Fuentes clip, which was very a strange one for him to pick. He wanted to know if I wanted to denounce it. It's a clip of, I think his producers just fumbled the ball here. It's a clip of Nick Fuentes calling me beautiful and intelligent. Okay, do you want to denounce this? What kind of a trick question is this? Anyways, you're not going to want to miss it, so be sure to catch the Don Lemon podcast so you can see that bizarre interview in its entirety. And speaking of Christianity, if you are thinking about the faith, if you are thinking that maybe you are being compelled to go into the Bible, there's no better place to begin that than with Hallow. It is summer, and like many of you, I intend to spend more time with my family, getting outside, traveling, and letting go of some of the routine. But one routine that I will not be letting go of is my prayer routine. I'll be continuing my daily habit of prayer with Hallow, the #1 prayer app in the world. I love Hallow because it's such a great resource for the entire family. You get to connect more with God. And if you're looking for a place to begin, you should check out their new scripture series on the Gospel of John with biblical scholar Jeff Cavins and Jonathan Rumi, who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, or some new upcoming content with Jim Caviezel, the actor from Sound of Freedom, and of course, The Passion of the Christ. Using this app is such a great way to spend a few minutes a day meditating on scripture and talking to God about what he wants for your life. Prepare your mind and heart for the chaos of this world by building your foundation of daily prayer today on Hallow. You can download it for 3 months free by visiting hallow.com/Candace. That's hallow.com/Candace. All right, now it's time to get into some stories. But before we get into these stories, you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, how close? What are we, 1.96? I can't stand it. Get me over the finish line so we are at 2 million subs. Also, head to locals.com and support the show in whatever capacity that you can, if you can. Okay, first up, Mikhaila Peterson. I'm actually going to remove her from her father for the sake of this story, because I do think it's unfair to conflate the opinions of one with the other. I think it's also fair to ask Jordan Peterson to respond to it because she is his manager. She speaks out for him. She's been his spokeswoman in the past. And so that's why there is some confusion about these ideas, and because he seems to be defending her. But again, tricky situation. It's his daughter. I could not defend my daughter. So I'm sympathetic to that. Anyways, we covered this last week. Mikhaila Peterson came out and straight up called for censorship online. She tweeted, "Yes, I think the Nazis on X equating Jews with rats and using hashtags like filth should have more content moderation and or censorship. No, I'm not retracting that statement." Okay, she then deleted the tweet and did a longer thread calling for the exact same thing, opening a conversation about how we could moderate these individuals. I obviously was one of the people who responded to this tweet, which did go viral because I have used the word filth, speaking about a rabbi who was harassing me for literally 2 years. It is my right to use that word, even if he hadn't been harassing me, because it is an English word and you should be allowed, if you believe in free speech, to call somebody filth if you believe that they're acting that way. Maybe you want to call an OnlyFans model filth. Maybe you want to say this Sexy Red song, I think I've done this before, is filth. Filth is an English word and it can be used to describe people. It can be used to describe a music video. It can be used to describe whatever you want, a floor, if you would. So obviously she received a ton of backlash, and in response, Mikhaila Peterson decided to do a video yesterday. And there's a lot happening. There is a lot happening right now. And unfortunately, I think that her father is receiving backlash as an extension of a lot of the stuff that she's saying. And I don't think it's fair. She starts the video by first, I guess she's now at the point in leftist thought where everyone that disagrees with me or says something I don't like is a Nazi. And she even takes it a step further by suggesting that these people are being funded by Iran, which to me is like the Russian hoax. Oh, all the MAGA people are Nazis. Oh, they're all being paid by Russia. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Hey guys, over the weekend I was scrolling around X and I was being spammed with Nazi content to an unnerving degree. Not that one post isn't bad enough, but I've pressed not interested on so many anti-Semitic posts, it's ridiculous. And I'm not defining Nazi content by the liberal definition of Nazi, but real Jew-hating spam on X. So it's been all over my feed. Not from people I follow, by the way, just random posts. It makes me think these accounts are being funded by Iran, honestly, but that's a topic for another time, and I have no evidence of that.
Yeah, of course she has no evidence for that, just like the left had no evidence for the idea that Russia was funding any of us who had a different idea about the Ukrainian and Russian war. And of course, they had no evidence that Russia was interfering in our elections, but they just said it anyways because it kind of adds to this idea about who everyone that supported Donald Trump is, right? Or what this sort of boogeyman that they're building about Trump supporters. She's doing this exact same thing, right? She's talking about Iran. She's showing accounts. She's calling them Nazis. And she's like, I'm not saying this in the leftist way. Yes, you are. Because guess what? There is no Nazi party in America, right? So if you're even trying to say these people are Nazis, you are trying to mine history and assign this to a group of people who likely just disagree with you because you have made an open call for censorship. So let's get into what she said about her tweet for censorship. Take a listen.
So I tweeted out one of these posts and said a few things. So first there was this one. And then when I started getting attacked online for the first post, which I thought was obviously anti-Semitic and anybody would think so, but like wham, thousands of negative comments, I tweeted out this, which I ended up deleting because it wasn't worded properly, honestly. So let me clarify. I shouldn't have used the word censor. I should have been more careful with that word because it's not exactly what I meant. It's hard to believe that if I'm not over the top clear in my communication randomly on X, it matters enough that it can go viral. That's still weird for me. Dad obviously has the same problem. Most of my tweets don't go viral. What I meant was if I don't follow Nazis on X, I don't want their posts all over my feed, and the algorithm shouldn't be pushing these posts. Not that they shouldn't have the freedom to post it. I meant censor as in don't artificially push their posts, not disallow users from posting whatever they want. So I should have said, I don't want Nazi posts pushed by the algorithm, not censor Nazis. There's a difference between freedom of speech and freedom of reach.
So much happening there, and I just want to slow it down. So first and foremost, she's saying, even though she did not attach to her initial tweet, there was no attachment, she just blanketly tweeted that she believes that people who use hashtags like filth should have content moderation or censorship. Now she's saying, well, I meant it regarding a different Nazi who wrote a tweet that I had responded to earlier. Okay, well, when you go back to that initial tweet that she's referring to a tweet where a woman was pointing out that a lot of the porn sites are owned by Jewish people. So she writes Jewish contributions, who owns OnlyFans, who owns most porn websites, who founded Tinder, who founded Grindr, who founded Bumble. Now, does that make somebody a Nazi? She can disagree with this, and she's welcome to, and she should. You might say to someone, listen, I think that what you're pointing out is wrong, and let me show you this other piece of information that I have that shows you that actually all of these accounts, all of these websites are shared or it's owned by a private equity firm. You can dispute that narrative, but to call somebody a Nazi is a different level, right? And also, I want to be clear that when it comes to pornography, there have been many Jewish people in the porn industry who have said that we run the porn industry. So that's a whole different discussion, and it's a matter for another day. But again, just blanketly saying that this person is a Nazi is, in my view, a quite hysterical response. Just debunk it if you think that you are wrong. That would be that they are wrong. That would be the rational thing to do. In terms of her trying to then mass apply that and say everybody who had a response to her calling for censorship is now a part of the Nazi class is absurd. I understand that Michaela Peterson is Canadian, and sometimes these things don't cross over because Americans are passionate about free speech. I mean, when you come for our speech, when you make an open call for censorship, you're going to go viral, okay? You have to own that. To say that you're surprised because your tweets don't go viral, your father has a very large American audience. Your father has fought for free speech and understood the value of free speech, even in terms of what was going on in Canada. So yes, that tweet went viral authentically. To pretend that it shouldn't have gotten reach because these are Nazis, that's a nonsense, and it's a cop-out. You know what it is? It's dishonest. So when we talk about how people don't feel that you are an honest person, okay? It's fine to get things wrong. By the way, if she had come out and just did a full mea culpa and was like, listen, I was 3 glasses of wine in, just got into a fight with my husband, I was just tweeting and I regret it, that would be fine. But she's still trying to pretend that the backlash that she got only happened because people were supporting Nazism. That's not true. It's because we are Americans and we care passionately about free speech, as do many other people around the world, recognizing that when speech leaves, so necessarily does what follows is that you lose a lot of your freedoms. You have to have the ability to critique bad ideas, just in the way that you were doing it. You think that what that woman wrote was a bad idea. So you are free to say that. People are then able to respond to you when you have a bad idea. And it's better to just own it when you do, rather than to pretend that there's some Nazi conspiracy that was happening on X. I was offended. I am not a Nazi. And when you start doing that, when you start calling everybody a Nazi, pretending that they're being funded by Iran, unfortunately, you have become a leftist. Here is the final clip from her episode discussing what happened. Take a listen.
Anyway, Nick Fuentes, I don't know because I don't care, a well-known anti-Semitic boy, went after me along with his thousands of anti-Semitic followers because I said that people who use the hashtag filth or rats when referring to an entire nation of people should be censored. Like I said, this was after I got attacked for retweeting a medical doctor who had the original anti-Semitic post, retweeting it in a negative way. Again, I meant these people's content shouldn't be pushed by the algorithm. I shouldn't have said censored. And Nick Fuentes responds with, your dad called me a rat. And I would like to clarify, I think calling individuals rats or whatever is fine, particularly if they are rat-like. I think it's different when you're referring to an entire nation of people as rats that have been subject to, say, Hitler less than 100 years ago, when the Nazis of the 1930s also referred to those people as rats as a tactic to breed disgust. So yeah, I think referring to Jews as rats is completely different than referring to Nick Fuentes as a rat. And if you can't understand the differentiation, I can't help.
Okay, so first and foremost, she just lied. Okay, Nick Fuentes did not reply to a tweet of her saying that the entire nation of Jews should not be called. No, he replied to the tweet that I just showed you earlier, where she straight up called for censorship. And so the people that then flooded this back forth, because she called for censorship, she said, if you equate someone to a rat, and then Nick Fuentes showed that he had just been equated to a rat from her father. So obviously that appeared to the public as extremely hypocritical, and people were commenting on that. These were not Nazis rushing to his aid, but people that were going, hey, you made a bit of an uh-oh here. Again, I am happy that she's clarifying. I still disagree with her. I don't believe that there should be some censorship or moderation. I think people are free to log off. I think Michaela Peterson, if she feels overwhelmed by Twitter and free speech, is free to delete her account. And I think she should. I genuinely said yesterday to her, because she's just been like on a spiral about this, that maybe she just needs to take a break from social media. There have been tons of actresses like Selena Gomez who were like, I just need to take a break from social media. Maybe she needs to take a break from social media because she's feeling overwhelmed. That's fine. But again, her other method of, first off, lying, denying, and then trying to shame or make people believe that this was about something else other than the fact that she made a direct call for censorship, for which she's sort of halfway admitting she was wrong, that's a nonsense. And it's something that needs to be called out. People that are going, why are we attacking our own side? Because we are recognizing this is not our side. We believe in free speech. That's it, okay? If she is calling for censorship, she's no longer on our side. That's it, okay? We believe that you can have a disagreement with somebody without calling them a racist, a Nazi, all of these names that they're called, because you're not actually disputing their ideas, okay? That's what it means. We believe in the battle of ideas, and the best ideas should win. I think right now she has the wrong idea about free speech. I do. And I would welcome a discussion with her, right? Like I said, this doesn't dismiss all of the work her father has done. I think that it warrants a discussion about whether this is her opinion, whether it's both of their opinions. But I'm not really clear on that. But again, let's just take it for what it's worth. Michaela Peterson is saying this. Dr. Jordan Peterson is not saying this. I would like to have a conversation with her. I reached out to somebody that has access to her. I said I would welcome to have this discussion on my show, because I'm not here as a believer in cancel culture. I don't think you're like, hey, well, this person should be gone forever because they have a bad idea. People can be wrong. People can transform, but they should own it when they are wrong. And I think she's extremely wrong on this point. So Michaela, if you're watching, I'm sure you are, because you hopped into our comments almost immediately when we covered this topic before. Again, just calling people names, because that seems to be where you're at right now. I would welcome a well-meaning discussion with you. Like, genuinely, I want to know where you are at on speech, because I just find it to be very inconsistent with things that you have said in the past. And then, like I said yesterday, your family has made a lot of money as people that were advocating for freedom. Okay, so if that has shifted, it is understandable that you are going to be receiving backlash. The backlash is not a conspiracy. The backlash is an opportunity for you to clarify your perspectives. And maybe you have shifted your perspectives. That's welcome too. But I would like to know what it is that you actually mean. All right, guys, moving on. Huge story coming out of Israel by, again, these are Israeli publications, Haaretz and the Times of Israel. Now, when October 7th happened, I instantly knew that we should wait for more information because I'm so used to the media. Whenever they're all in lockstep, screaming, demanding that everybody post a black square a la George Floyd, you know that you should wait for more information. And that's what I did, obviously, when everything happened with George Floyd. And then I did a story of like, actually, the media is kind of lying about everything here. There's a lot missing here. This man was not hunted down by police, as they were all telling us. People were burning down America. They wanted justice for these George Floyd having lost his life to racist police officers. That is always the media habit. When you see like all at once, they're all telling you that you need to have a reaction. It's a good time to chill out. And when October 7th happened, it was very much that. It was the George Floyd. Everybody needs to comment on it. Everyone needs to understand. Everyone needs to be, pro-Israel, getting the hostages by whatever means possible. And it just felt like we should wait until we had some more clarity on what took place. And anybody that was asking questions like, how does this attack go on for hours in a country that is the size of New Jersey and has what is supposed to be the greatest military in the world? How does this happen? How does this intel not make it to the top? You're supposed to have the greatest intelligence agency in the world, pardon. And then people came out and Egypt said, we warned them about this and they ignored our reports and the media kind of buried that. And then there were people who are pro-Palestinian saying that what you saw were, in terms of the vehicles that looked like they had all been blown up, they were saying, well, Hamas did not have the capacity to do that. The IDF officers were also killing civilians and killing their own. And it wasn't clear because when things are chaotic, of course, we're not going to get the truth until much later. Well, obviously, this is a huge, huge story. And then people started saying, no, there is a directive, a Hannibal directive that Israel actually employs in certain circumstances. And our government just denied that they knew anything about that directive. Take a listen.
You talk about the hostages. Israel has a Hannibal directive in which it has orders in place to kill at least its own soldiers, lest they fall into the hands of Palestinian groups. And there's substantial reporting that in fact, was utilized on October 7th, not just against Israeli soldiers, but against civilians. Are we not now in a situation where Israel may be using the Hannibal directive, not just on Israelis, civilians and military, but on U.S. citizens and other foreign nationals?
So I am not familiar in any way with either that supposed directive or those reports. And so
you've never heard of the Hannibal?
Certainly would not want to comment on it.
You've never heard of the Hannibal directive?
So that's our State Department. Just moving on. I've never heard of it. I have no idea what you're talking about. People were called anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists. They were called Jew haters for even talking about that directive. And that guy sounds incredulous. He's like, there's no way you don't know about this directive. And guess what, guys? It turns out that directive not only does it exist, but it was employed on October 7th. And this is, again, coming from Israel. This is coming from their publications, the Israel Times and Haaretz. And this is the tweet that they sent out. Documents and testimonies obtained by Haaretz reveal the Hannibal Operational Order, which directs the use of force to prevent soldiers being taken captive, was employed at 3 facilities infiltrated by Hamas, potentially endangering civilians as well. And when we go on and you read these articles, it clarifies that, yes, that an order was sent down basically saying that nobody is leaving and returning to Gaza. That is what the Hannibal Directive is. They want to make sure that nobody is taken captive, and they just say, kill anything that moves. And so it is becoming clear or undeniable that Israel killed some of its own. And so the question, I guess, that I have is, does that change the way that some people feel? Because we now have a lot of stuff that's coming out. Not only did they have prior knowledge that was given to them by Egypt, they also knew they intercepted, again, this is from the Times of Israel, a detailed plan that Hamas was planning on kidnapping 200 people. They intercepted that plan, did nothing with it. And then on top of that, we're now learning that they issued this directive. does that change the way anybody feels? Maybe it doesn't. What Dave Smith said to me, that he believes that it was just a remarkable failure, a failure in intelligence all around. And that might be the conclusion, that this was just a remarkable intelligence failure. But I do believe that the people that were so vicious in their rhetoric the day after, when people were asking meaningful questions, just trying to understand what happened without being reactive, but actually trying to report on facts, should also be reporting on this. And it's a very questionable directive. I don't know how people feel about that. And I know that people in Israel are upset about it. For whatever reason, it seems that people in Israel are allowed to critique the Israeli government, but people in America won't. That's very bizarre to me. I don't understand it. And like I've said many times, I am not quite clear on why Jewish Americans feel that they have to keep defending what Bibi Netanyahu is doing. Like, you don't have to defend what Biden is doing. You don't have to defend what Trump is doing when he's in office. Why are you so emotionally conditioned to believe that you have to defend whatever it is that Bibi Netanyahu is doing, even when it's clear that he has done a lot of things that are blatantly immoral? I don't understand that. You are allowing people to attach you to, well, you're a Jew, so you have to defend whatever Jews do all around the world. No, you don't. You literally don't. No more than I have to defend what Black people do around the world that are bad and awful. In fact, I will critique it, because we should not ever feel that we have to defend immorality. So that is my spiel on that. So if you're a regular viewer of the show, you know by now that the Tuttle Twins is one of the sponsors of the show. There are currently 13 books in this series for children. Ethan and Emily Tuttle learn about complex ideas in ways that are fun and easy to understand, with each book covering a different topic about economics, business, or political philosophy. This week, the Tuttle Twins and the Leviathan Crisis caught my eye. In the story, the Tuttle Twins compare a fantasy-themed game that they had been playing with an economic recession their community is suffering from in the real world. They learn about how political demagogues use fear to get the people to relinquish power and control over their own lives in return for protection and security from a false idol. These are the types of things we all need to clearly understand and articulate if we're going to preserve a free world for our children and grandchildren. Right now, you can get all 13 books for a special deal at TuttleTwins.com/Candace. The discount for my viewers will be applied at checkout, and you'll pay around $70 for over 700 fully illustrated pages. So go support them. Support your kids. Seriously, guys, the education system is just failing everybody. We don't know what's true. You're going to have to educate your children by yourself. That's what we're doing in our household. What can we teach them that we know they're not going to learn in school? And guess what? Now you can simultaneously support The Candace Show. Place your order at TuttleTwins.com/Candace. All right, guys, now it's time to get into some of your comments. This is just a general comment, which I was deeply appreciative of, from Adam Morgan. He writes, I was just telling my wife a few months ago how there just isn't anything interesting on YouTube anymore. I gave up cable TV and Netflix years ago. Then came Candace off the top ropes. Love this show. Thank you, guys. I deeply appreciate those comments, because I just feel like I'm truly being myself, and I am such a curious person. I just have a thirst for knowledge, and I also have this understanding. Obviously, I'm extremely humble that I don't know everything, and it's just been exciting for you guys to just be on this journey with me. This person writes, during the lockdowns, this is pertaining to Jennifer Garner's daughter. During the lockdown, Jennifer Garner conducted interviews with Anthony Fauci and treated him like a god and a superstar the whole time. It was cringe to watch, but you can see where her daughter got it from. Yeah, there was, and again, I wanted to not be hypercritical of her daughter because she's so young, but there was a certain neuroticism in the way that she was speaking, and typically that is passed down. And I bet that Jennifer Garner probably has some characteristics that make her a bit neurotic. And so people that tend to be neurotic really loved the idea of constantly using hand sanitizer, which makes no sense because that's bacterial, and we were told that it was a virus, and masking and double masking and pretending that they were always under duress, I guess. And that does not shock me at all. I like Jennifer Garner. As an actress, she seems friendly enough when you see the things that she's involved in. And I know that she's done some great things in terms of she actually produces some healthy food for kids that I've purchased. But this is not good. This is not good at all. And unfortunately, I think that her mind has been warped, inevitably, because she's in Hollywood. This person writes, I worked with a microbiologist. He said wearing a mask is like putting a chain link fence around your house to keep out mosquitoes. Then we went to 2-layer masks. So 2 chain link fences around your house to keep out mosquitoes. That is a great way of putting it. And by the way, they knew this early on. Don't forget, they had intercepted one of, and I'm sure they had censored this off the internet, but they had intercepted one of Dr. Fauci's emails where he said that the particles were way too small, and it didn't matter if people wore a mask because it could just get right through it. So the particles of the virus were way too small, and they just censored the crap out of that because they just wanted to see if they could create a religion, and they did. This next person writes, I am shocked after I learned that Nagasaki was a Catholic city. It was the center for Catholics in Japan. First time hearing about it, I was like, there's no way you just made that up. But then I looked it up and my jaw dropped. They never tell us this. Why? Yeah, I suspect a lot of you are interested in why it is that I decided to be baptized Catholic. And please know that it came after a lot of research and recognizing, and this is my belief, and I will share it at length at a different time, that it has always been a war against Catholics. It has always been a war against Christians, and that in the West, we had been deluded into believing that we were fighting for some other justice, when in reality, we were deluded by people who hate Christians. What a perfect scenario to propagandize Christians in the West to kill Christians in the East. And that's exactly what happened. And when you learn about the Information for War, which was established by FDR, and then all throughout World War II, you had this guy, Edward Bernays, you should look him up, he's Sigmund Freud's nephew, who was working and studying on how you could fundamentally warp people's psychology. And they worked on these programs to just Nazi. They're still doing it now. I mean, like I just said, like Mikhail, everybody's a Nazi, to make people have a visceral response to that and want to get on a plane and go kill some Christians. And that's what we did. And the more you study just how many cathedrals were bombed at the end of the war, you'll begin to start asking questions. And then you will revisit other wars like Vietnam and Cambodia, and you will see this theme that wherever Catholics begin to burgeon, they are bombed. And what's going on in Canada, as I brought up yesterday, interesting. Again, these are all just accidents, and they freak out when somebody starts speaking about it, hence the level up on all the attacks against me in the media. But I'm built different. This next person writes, Candace, a big fan from Ethiopia. Please be a voice for the Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. In the last 5 to 10 years, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, priests and followers, have been mass murders. Churches burned and people were forced to be displaced out of their country and regions, with many of them forced to emigrate in many countries. We have lost count on the death of millions of people. I did not know this. I'm glad I read that comment out loud. I will definitely look into it, and I am sadly not shocked at all because they are very quiet about wiping out every trace of Christianity, especially the older establishments of Christianity. So we're talking about Armenia, which I brought up, of course, in my Piers Morgan interview. Like, why is nobody caring about the fact that Israel is supplying the arms to murder Christians? And it will be interesting to see who is funding that. Who is funding that, because it is intentional. It's not an accident to keep bombing Orthodox communities, Orthodox religions, Orthodox cathedrals, Orthodox churches. And it is disheartening, but it is something that I believe that once Christians in the West have this awakening and learn about Protestantism more fully, who was behind the push for Protestantism in America, why we have so many different Protestant faiths, I think the world is going to change. I really do believe that we will once again become one holy apostolic faith. Lastly, this came from Nect, very interesting and definitely a topic I will look into next week because I've been interested in it in general, thanks to that book, Chaos. This is from Danny. He writes, hey, Candace, you could be potentially speaking to your biggest stans. My wife and I are massive fans from the UK. Firstly, let's start the convo with Crisis King. We appreciate you opening the eyes and minds of the sleeping masses. You are doing an amazing job and God bless you. You have to do an expose on chemtrails. I've been looking into this a lot lately, and we are literally being poisoned from above. Contrails from planes dissipate after a very short time. Chemtrails do not. There are many whistleblower pilots exposing what's happening. The official narrative is that aluminum is being pumped into the sky to reflect the sun to stop global warming. This is absolutely crazy. The aluminum falls from the sky. We breathe it in. It goes into our crops and into the sea. You have a giant fan base. Please get this out to the masses. We need to stop it. Secondly, look into Jane Stanley, BBC correspondent who reported Building 3 coming down before it actually did. The vids are on YouTube. Okay, so what I will say to you is I am interested in that because in that Chaos book, it just something that it flagged in my head was it was speaking about how they had MK Ultra American troops who were coming back talking from the Korean War, speaking about how the American government was involved for the first time in biological warfare. So they say they were spraying from planes and poisoning people. And then obviously, you know what happens thereafter, and NASA is established. Nobody really knows what NASA does, but they keep insisting on we went to the moon. So that's why we just give them this sort of black budget. And so I have questions about that. And you are correct. For a very long time, they called people that were talking about chemtrails crazy. And then they admitted, okay, no, we do spray the air, but it's for your good. And I just don't think the government is ever doing anything for our good. But, you know, that would make me a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. Anyways, guys, we will see you tomorrow. We have a great interview with the N-word girl. She's been going viral, and I think she's got some interesting ideas. So I'll see you guys then.